Behind the Stripes is our new segment brought to us by our friends at Kaiser Permanente, the official health insurance partner of Atlanta United. When it comes to anything with the five stripes, Kaiser has got it covered.
And it leads us to our first guest, Greg Garza.
I've heard of this guy.
How are you?
Thank you guys for having me.
It's good to actually see you and not see you through the monitor this time. That's always good. How are you? Everything good?
Everything's good. How about you guys?
Trying to stay warm?
Trying to stay from not being blown away today.
It's a little chilly this morning. I thought we were done with this.
I thought we were too, but back at it again.
So this is a segment where we're going to talk a lot of Atlanta United, and over the year where we're at different places, we're going to talk about a lot of different aspects with the club. One aspect I know we'll talk about in more detail later in the year is one that you've been heavily involved in, the unified team.
Of course, yeah. Always looking forward to it every single year. My first 2 years I was the ambassador myself with Brad, even Mark Bloom as well. Such a great organization. Just you see so much happiness in so many of those kids, faces that at the end of the day, we probably learn so much more from them than us being the ambassador and coaching them. Just being around them, understanding what true happiness is. All you need is a ball in front of your feet, and that's all they think about every time they go to training or every time they play a game.
When they first approached you to be a part of the engagement with the unified team, what did that mean to you personally when they reach out to you? It's like, hey, we want you to be a part of something that's really special, that grows the game in a different way that not a lot of folks get the chance to see. When they first approached you, what was your response?
So at the beginning of the season, they actually did a great job of giving us a list of all the different organizations we wanted to be a part of. I actually went personally to Marissa Aarons, who was the player relations person at Atlanta United, and told her that that's the one I wanted to be on. She could have me on whatever else she needed me for those years that I was going to be there, but I specifically chose that because that's something I've always been involved in. I just remember we had an organization, not necessarily what it stands for, but it was called PALS when I was in middle school.
Yeah.
But I did the exact same thing when I was in 8th grade. That's the year I came back from Brazil and had that opportunity to just spend time with kids, help them with their homework, follow them around, whether they were in elementary school or go over to the elementary schools, help kids with special needs. And that's something I always love to do. I think my parents raised me in the right way to always give out a helping hand no matter what. And it's something that, I've always loved to be involved in my whole entire career as well. So any chance I had to be that ambassador wherever I played, I was also the exact same ambassador in Tijuana when I played in Tijuana. So always looking back, I love kids. So it's always a great way to be involved with them.
That's awesome. And one of the other things that I know we'll talk about over the next year with Kaiser Permanente and Atlanta United is the GA100 project. And we saw the first mini pitch open up this week down in Brunswick. Brad and Tiago and George and Machope all went down to Brunswick. It's a long way down there to hang out with the kids and at Coastal Outreach. Those kinds of little mini pitches, I think it's something that, maybe it's easy to take for granted that we have access to field space. The mini pitches provide an opportunity for more kids to play and play in a different way with futsal.
I mean, you look at the inner city kids, right? I mean, Brunswick might be a little bit out there, but at the end of the day, a lot of these kids, they need activity, right?
Yeah.
If you look at studies, you look at statistics, you see when kids probably stop going outside and playing, it's probably around an age of 11, 12, to where they become their turtles in their shells and they don't get out. And so I think these mini pitches are obviously great to just bond these kids, not only within the community, but give them something to do. And soccer's taking over.
Yeah.
It is slowly, gradually taking over.
Getting that kid from playing FIFA on the video game system over to the mini pitch.
There you go. Exactly.
And when you look at futsal, I mean, it's a way to really keep you engaged because it's short space. You've really got to be mentally involved and physically involved from the absolute beginning. It's really something that will challenge you in a different way that prepares you for playing the game on the larger pitch.
You are not chasing butterflies when you're on a futsal. I'll tell you that much. You're moving around as much as possible and always involved. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's such a cool thing. And there's going to be some more opening up this year. I think there's 20 that have already been approved and at least partially funded. 80 more to go before 2026. So really excited about that project.
That's awesome.
All right, let's get into the team on the field because we talked to Michael Parkhurst about it yesterday, but I got to get your take on that insane 3-3 game that we all experienced.
He's already grinning about it.
It was nuts.
I actually left it. I almost left
Whoa.
it 3-1. I was
Oh,
thinking about beating traffic. I had my kids. I had my 3 kids and my mom. I was like, man,
uh-oh.
the way that these guys' body language is looking out there, let's get
Yeah.
the heck out of here before we get in traffic.
Right.
Leaving the stadium. I'm glad we stayed.
Yeah.
My middle one said, please, let's stay. You never know what can happen. And sure enough, right when he said that,
Smart kid.
yep. And anything can happen. I mean, that's why it's the MLS, right?
Yeah.
Anything
And
can happen
then
in
Thiago
MLS.
scores a bomb.
Unbelievable.
What a goal.
Unbelievable goal. And the body language just completely changed.
Yeah.
You know, I think that was the most disappointing thing to see throughout that whole entire game was just how the body language of those guys. And that's I was walking to the restroom or walking my boys around the stadium, and everybody just kept saying, "Man, we need something out there, right?
Yeah.
We need something out there." But it was good to see that was the spark that we needed.
The effect of that, like it's something that it's psychological when you're struggling and the game is a struggle and there's a mistake that leads to everybody, I think, having the bad body language. But then when you have a moment like that, just a special moment, it's a jolt of energy, but it's also a jolt of confidence.
You saw the camaraderie right after the goal, right? I mean,
so happy for him to get his first goal in that way.
For sure. And I think, that level of expectation, we spoke about it before, of him being so young, but way to come in with the boom, right? Ooh. I think, it's hard sometimes to come in and show that much value from the very beginning, and you kind of have to be very patient with players like that. But he's done very well, and you can see the savviness, you can see the skill set that he has on his shoulders. So, looking forward to seeing this kid in the future as well.
Yeah, same.
When you get that moment like that, let me go to the other side for a little bit. From the Montreal perspective, it was almost like it was an uh-oh. And you get that kind of a cascade where it's like, while they did that, okay, it's 3-2. And then it's like the field almost tilts a little bit. And you could kind of see it in Montreal where it's like, okay, let's try to get out of here. They tighten up. You could sense tightening up, and you could also sense that momentum was slipping away from them at the same time. What's it like to look in somebody's eyes in an opponent's sense and see that fear, see that see that we've really got to get out of town? I mean, what's it like to see that look in an opponent?
Thank you. From the Atlanta side, you want to take advantage of it as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I could think of, and I told my mom and I told my kids after, I said, I don't know how many Gatorade or water bottles were probably thrown in that Montreal locker room after the game. Because they had it in the bag, and essentially they just let everything go, and they let the fans bring the other team back, and unfortunately that's how MLS can be. I recall a game. I mean, Seattle is probably king of it, right?
Yeah.
There's so many beginning season games for them to where the first 9 games out of the season they lose 2-0, 3-0, and they'll come back and win 4-3 or tie 3-3, and that just gives them that momentum, right? And so hopefully you kind of think that gives Atlanta that momentum to build from these moments like this, and understand that can't let these things happen so often. But what a great way to really gain that confidence back, like you guys said.
It's so much easier as a coach to I think hit the negative stuff after coming back that way, because you have a game like that, the body language is so bad, you don't want to pile on. But when you have that comeback, then you can kind of light into the team a little bit about what went wrong.
We always talk about focusing on the positives, right?
Yeah.
Focusing on the positives and finding those strengths. That is a game to where, like you said, with the outcome, you can definitely nail on the negatives that were within that game, the weakness, the weak points, the weak spots that were in the whole entire team. It was a frustrating game to watch. I don't know about you guys.
It was frustrating to call because it was just like,
you were just hoping for something more. You were hoping for something to kind of click, and you kind of wished it would have. It's so hard to score goals in the beginning of the games.
Yep.
Because you have that momentum, you have that adrenaline running through you, and to kind of keep that adrenaline, that momentum going from a goal right from the 5th, 6th minute, can be so difficult. You almost have you sit back on your heels after that and kind of wait for whatever's going to happen. But I'm glad we got a point out of that. We take it. I would say we take that game as a win.
Yeah.
You need those points at the end of the day. You will need that point, especially playing down a man.
Mm-hmm.
Montreal, like I said, is going in that locker room.
Whew.
So mad and such an unfortunate
second game they've blown a lead this season already. That gets in your head.
Most definitely. So those are the kind of teams to where you kind of worry, and now you have that time off to kind of regroup.
And to think about it too,
Can be good or bad.
You kind of want those games to where you want a game 3 days after, or, next week. You don't want this time off, these 2 week breaks or this week break to where it makes it difficult.
Yeah.
When you get that first goal in that 5th or 6th minute, I think that when you look at it, it's one of the hallmarks that what we've anticipated here under Gonzalo Pineda, where you pounce. I mean, you're pouncing on the opportunity to try to win the ball back. And it's Tyler Wolf and it's Joseph and it's Hosetu that are coming back to create an opportunity. And I think that we've seen it more than once this season already, where you can kind of see the opposing players look out of the corner of their eye, seeing Atlanta United player coming, and they flinch. And then it forces them into a decision that they wouldn't normally make. And you have a lot of guys in a small amount of space, and Atlanta United capitalize. It's one of those hallmark moments that I think that we should be able to anticipate happening a lot this season because of how things are structured.
That goal definitely reminded me of the press that we had a few years ago, right? You focus on that press and winning that ball back as quickly as possible. And you had guys like that, Miguel and Joseph and other guys that just on Tito that understood the value of winning the ball so much closer to goal, right? What opportunities it can create. One thing I really did enjoy, and I think such a huge leadership quality, was from Joseph right after that goal, was going straight to Tyler and give him a huge hug, because he is the one that started that play. He is the one that started that.
He's so good at those moments too.
We talk about contribution, right? What are the things that you can bring to the table? And I mean, it was unfortunate to see, there weren't many chances of his created throughout the midst of the game, but those moments as a coach and as someone who knows the game and watches closely, you say, okay, maybe he didn't create anything. Maybe he didn't, contribute in other ways, but just that little moment right there plays a huge role in the outcome of that game.
Yeah, it's such a critical thing. And Tyler's now with the U20s. Caleb Wiley, I believe, starting for the U20s this morning as they're playing some friendlies down in Argentina. Miles with his good performance with the U.S. national team. Joseph nearly had a goal at La Bombonera last night. Really close situation there. We'll expect Ronald Hernandez to play. You've got a lot of guys who are away and are going to come back into this group later this week. And then you go on the road for 2 at DC, who we know has a kind of unique style. It's going to be a little difficult because of that. And then you go to Charlotte, who fought you all the way down to the end and is going to be loaded for bear against you. 2 tough games on the road.
As many points as you can take out of that, right?
Yeah.
If you can go away with 2 points within 2 of both those games, then you're happy, right? I think we talked about it before, as I don't know what it is, but within this league of Major League Soccer, playing away is it's life or death, right?
Yeah.
There's just, I don't know what happens, but you're almost bound to lose every away game. And you look at every single team, there are barely any away wins or away ties. That always the home team usually always wins, and that's why those home games are so important. But hopefully we can kind of bounce back from this last tie and get however many points we can on the road.
And at the same time, you're having to reintegrate with guys who are coming back from national team duty, wherever it is, especially a guy like Miles. You bring Joseph in, Ronald Hernandez coming back, all of them coming back after being on national team duty. That's tough for them to come from all points of the earth, to come back and be ready for a DC team that's going to be a tough out.
I think the only thing you can pray for, especially with Gonzalo and his staff, is just making sure these guys get back healthy. And it's a quick turnaround, right? I remember going with the national team and flying wherever back to Mexico and having 2 days before the next game, right? And so it's a very quick turnaround. You have to have those guys as honest as they can be. If they can start, they can start. If not, you have 2 away games, and they're pretty important games. So kind of which one, pick which one is probably the most important for a lot of those guys. That are
I think Charlotte can sort of pick which one is important of those 2.
Yeah, I would pick Charlotte as well. You have these guys coming right back from international duty. You don't want to pile too much pressure on their on their bodies, and because it takes a toll from traveling, from being in different places, and the level you are playing is I wouldn't say higher, but just as an intensity wise is so much more, right?
Yep.
And it's not only the games, right? And that's something that we always talked about. People always ask, what was the difference within the national team? And it's, you have your top highest working guys within training every single day at your club, Well, now all those guys are together,
Mm-hmm.
and every single training is like that, right? So, within clubs, you have a couple of guys that might switch off a little. You might have a couple guys that might take it easy some days. But when you're with the national team, wherever you are, those guys are 1,000 miles an hour every single day. They're in training. So it's really finding that balance of understanding, okay, how fit are these guys to come back and still provide and not think about any injury prevention moments.
And it's tough because Miles is in Costa Rica. Your U20 guys are down in Argentina. Venezuela will be at home. That's long trips. Miles plays Wednesday. The other guys play Tuesday. So they'll be back sometime Wednesday. Miles will be here probably Thursday morning, and then you're traveling Friday. You just start doing the math. That DC game gets a little complicated. You're going to have to turn to some guys coming off the bench.
And that's where you find that depth. I think that is something that they do have this year. They
do
have
too.
A lot of depth and where they can bring in guys that can still get the job done. You kind of look – I always take that first season in 2017 to where we probably had that whole entire season, maybe 14, 15 guys of core guys that would play. And within MLS, you need a strong, deep team to where if a lot of those guys are missing, you can have anybody step in and come and do the job. And I think this year they have a really good depth chart to where they can find guys that still – even guys that are coming off of injury, right?
Yeah.
Guys that are coming back. You have Emo that's coming back as well. Another good guy that's
I hear he's getting close and
fit enough to get in these next games and just get some minutes to get that confidence back. I think it's good to see a lot of these guys reintegrating in the team.
I think it's important too why you have guys like Alex DeJohn, Mikey Ambrose in the team because they know their roles. They're not going to see a lot of games with the first team. Mikey, really important with the second team and the young group. But this is a game in DC where both of those guys either start or come off the bench because they're going to be needed.
You speak about those industrial players, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those guys that can really just, when you need them, they are solid guys to make the difference, right? And they can, they're versatile, they're flexible, they can play different positions. And then that creates opportunity for them, right? At the end of the day, that creates opportunity.
Yep. But when you have those guys, those glue guys, the industrial guys, whatever term you want to use, for a club that has aspirations like Atlanta United always has, they're going to have situations where those guys aren't just desired or needed, but it's desired, needed, wanted, and you have to have them produce. That's a different kind of pressure to have for a guy like that. But Atlanta United has always had those guys across the board as they've chased titles.
It has been fortunate enough to see an organization make teams to where they do have that ability to use their depth chart, right? You truly need that to have success within this league. It is, I always say this is such a long season because of, just all the travel, and you look at other countries and European countries to where if you're not playing Champions League, your longest flight is, hour and a half, 2 hours,
right?
You're bussing everywhere. And here you are flying 4 hours, 4.5 hours, 5 hours sometimes, layovers, whatever it may be. You finally getting the charter flights in, which is great for the league. But, it really takes a toll on a lot of these players. And a lot of these players that come in from different places and don't realize how tough it can be with the travel or with, the high standards it may be. So that's where that depth comes in. And those guys that can understand their roles and understand their responsibilities and how they can keep themselves accountable. And that's what you look for.
And the other side of the depth is the young side of it. And that's something that this academy has done a great job with in producing players. 18 guys have signed pro contracts now. Noah Cobb is the latest. He's going to be a homegrown for next year. It feels like when you look at how Atlanta United launched and you get into some of the different things that they got right, the academy is one that doesn't get talked about a lot, but maybe is one of the biggest things they got right straight out of the gate. Have that many pros already.
Noah, huge kudos to Noah Cobb. He's one of Michael's mentees. So
yeah,
it's great to see these kids, have the right mindset, know the responsibilities and understand their roles whenever they go into those situations and those opportunities. But yeah, they've done a great job with the academy, haven't they? Just helping these kids continue to flourish. The only thing you can do is just root for these kids and hope that they have the right mindset whenever they do have that opportunity.
It's just that extra little, spark, I think, for the crowd. It's that extra little bit of excitement, especially for those of us who grew up in Atlanta, to see local kids representing the local team. And when they have those special moments, whether it's George Campbell with some of the performances we've seen this year, Wiley getting his goal, it just takes it to a whole nother level and increases that connection, I think, between the city and the club.
Most definitely. I mean, one moment that always stuck out to me was when Andrew Carlton came on. And,
100%.
Mm-hmm.
And you just
total goosebumps.
You've the whole entire crowd. I mean, I had goosebumps for him, and it was I think everybody had goosebumps for him just to see the crowd, how involved they were, and how happy, how much of a big moment that is, right? We always focus on comparisons within academies, right? Who produces more? You look at Dallas, or you look at LA, or you look at these academies in New York Red Bull, or these academies that truly they breed great professionals, right? They breed great guys that can come in and do the job and ultimately have great success for the rest of their careers. So, I think Atlanta has really created, great opportunities for a lot of these young kids.
So fast too.
Very quick.
And they're not intimidated by their surroundings. I mean, you're talking about, in Noah's case, last season 15, now he's 16, in USL Championship, playing against players that are twice his age at points when you're going up against those independent clubs like a Lou City or something like that. Mm-hmm. Not intimidated by his surroundings. I mean, these young athletes go in there, and it's just like, yeah, okay, so you're an experienced pro. You've got all these accolades. Yeah, good on you. And I'm just going to come after you. They're not intimidated by this at all.
It's great to see, and that's kind of, I'm interested to see what happens with the MLS Next Pro, because it takes away that opportunity for these 15, 16-year-olds to play against guys that might be 30, 35, or have been in the league for a really long time and playing on USL teams, right? So, we'll definitely probably see some change within the next few years, and I hope that it'll be something to where we can continue to develop these kids around grown men. We always talk about, especially with my mentees, or especially with things that I can point out, it's always understanding that, okay, whenever I became a pro, it was sitting down with the oldest guys. It was understanding what was going on in their minds, or how they were able to create success for themselves at such a consistent level for so long, right? And, I didn't want to surround myself around all the young kids because, they were all thinking the exact same thing. We've made it, right? But in my mind, it was like, okay, how long can I make this last, right? So I'm hoping that we can continue to develop these kids on the mental aspect of it as well, and helping them understand, even with MLS Next Pro, that there are responsibilities for them to continue to grow and develop mentally as well.
Yeah, that league kicked off last night. If you guys didn't see it, St. Louis had a capacity crowd. They got the win over Rochester, New York, the former Rochester Rhinos, Jamie Vardy's team. The league really gets going today with games all over the place. I'm excited in a lot of ways about that league, because I think it's going to push everybody to develop more talent, which is good, because some haven't really gone down the USL road. Some have. It's been a little all over the place. Everybody's going to have to be in here. And if you are a team that maybe, or a club that hasn't taken it as seriously, and you get waxed a few times in MLS Next Pro, the competitiveness kicks in, and then you're going to go find maybe some of those veterans to come in and help your young guys through.
Most definitely. And that's where you need that development, the development side to really kick in for a lot of these kids, right? To understand, like I said, to understand the responsibilities, how to keep yourself accountable, learn from these guys what to do, not only on the field, but off the field. And that's a huge push for these kids to continue their success as well.
I thought it was an interesting point that you just made about MLS Next Pro, where looks like, except for the independent clubs and the occasional player, you're going up against peers now in that situation. You're losing that element of going up against those older players. How do you think, what's the difference in going up against peers in this modern age, and then losing that idea of not going up against those that are 25, 26, 27? How big of a difference is there when you lose that knowledge base?
It's a big one. It's a big one, because you look at maybe the EPL with their reserve league that they do not have anymore.
Yeah.
They have their under 23s and stuff like, I guess, essentially the reserve league, right?
Yeah.
But how many of those guys that truly make it to the next level are 22 years old, right? Or 21 or 20 years old? The success to breed these kids in are these Noah Cobbs, are these George Campbells, are these George Bellows, are these kids that are 15, 16 years old, already getting not only minutes within the first team, but they're training every single day with the first team. And that is how I just remember the first time I trained with Sporting Lisbon. I was on the reserve team for whenever I signed there until I got loaned out. And, you train with the first team, and it is different. It's a different story, right?
Yeah.
You're going in, you're playing against guys that, I mean, I played with a guy, Anderson Polga, who had won a World Cup with Brazil. Played with, Lee Edson, who was on Portugal. Helder Postiga was in the final of Euros. João Moutinho, who's at Wolves. Miguel Veloso, who's, I don't know where, but, played all over the place as well. Portugal. Guys that European champions, guys that had played on Portugal. But, it's a different mindset. The maturity level of being that 16, 17-year-old kid and understanding my role and going in and head down, shaking their hands, and just understanding, okay, today I'm going to work my tail off, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to have any disrespect towards anyone. I'm just going to listen to everything. I'm going to be a great rookie, right?
Yeah.
And so you need that aspect of having these kids understanding, and I hope that we don't get away from that, right? And it's okay to have rookies come in and have hard veterans. We always joke around with Michael and Jeff and these guys that, whether they were at New England or whenever they came in and they had Taylor Twellman or they had these guys that really pushed them to the edge, but probably helped them understand many different lessons at the same time, right?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. I am curious to see what happens next. Like, you'll have some veterans in MLS Next Pro. You will have a couple independent teams that'll factor in. I think it can create an opportunity maybe for some of the players who come through clubs that don't quite get to that first team level on a regular basis, but have a lot of value to the club, maybe transition into being academy coaches down the road. We're seeing Benny Feilhaber, Ike Opara lead Sporting Kansas City too. That's really cool to see. But I think it maybe creates more of an opportunity, and MLS hasn't done a lot of this, is loaning guys out and loaning players either to USL Championship or to Liga MX or, over to Europe or to South America and put some guys who have excelled at the MLS Next Pro level in a challenging situation like you're talking about.
Most definitely. I think that's you look at the key to success, or you look at the how these other countries do it, and that's exactly what they do. That's what happened. That's what happened to most of us. You get loaned out, and see how you can be in a different situation or in a more, I would say, hostile environment. And something to where you are not you're not babysat, right? You were thrown into the den with the rest of the Lions and guys that have been around for a really long time, and they're not going to cut you any slack, right? You come from these bigger clubs. You come from these bigger clubs. There's a level of expectation of being babysat, right?
Yeah.
So that's what these kids need. These kids need to understand their responsibilities, and you go into situations like that or circumstances like that, and it helps you mature. It helps you grow mentally. Understanding, like I said, from the most important thing is just understanding the little things, right? How big of a difference the little things are in what you do off the field, how you manage your body, what you eat, all the little steps in creating your own success for the future and keeping it consistent. And I think those are definitely the keys to success in helping these kids get loaned out and understanding those responsibilities.
It's something Eric Winalda's talked about that I think we kind of leave out of the conversation at times. You go into that situation, you're either going to be there to help put more money on some of these guys' tables to feed their families because of the win bonuses and all those things. Or if you don't perform, you're going to be taking away money from their table, and they're not going to be looking too kind on that.
What is the incentive, right? That was
it's
always
a different level of pressure.
The level of incentive right there is key, right?
Yeah.
For these kids, and any of us professionals, right? You want to work towards something. You want to work towards those bonuses. You want to work towards, it does create confidence within the group, not only personally, but it creates that camaraderie within the group, and does help these youngins mature as well.
It's big. We're going to talk a lot about Georgia Alliance and the foundation that has just been created that you are on the board. We're going to have Adam come up here in just a second. But we will get some questions from you guys watching on Twitch as well. We're going to get those after about 20 minutes or so is what we're going to look at. So go warm up first off, because you get a break now. You can go get in the front of the heater in your car for a little bit. Yep. Make Adam do the hard work now for a bit.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Greg. We'll see you back in a minute.
See you.
Thanks, Greg.
And we got some business to take care of.
Yes. Just a reminder that segment, Behind the Stripes, presented by Kaiser Permanente, official health insurance partner of Atlanta United. When it comes to anything with the five stripes, Kaiser has got it covered.
Kaiser Permanente, new partners of Soccer Down here.